Challenge time. When was the last time you checked your tire pressure? Not just glanced at the light, but actually measured the PSI. Most drivers fail this test miserably. By the end of this video, you'll not only know why it matters, but you'll be able to spot the exact pressure your vehicle needs by checking one hidden label most people never look at. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. You've probably seen it before. A small yellow icon shaped like a horseshoe with an exclamation mark in the center. You turn the key, the dashboard lights briefly up, and that little one catches your eye. Maybe it flickers off after a few seconds, or maybe it stays on. Most people glance at it once, shrug, and keep driving. But that tiny symbol is quietly tracking one of the most fundamental safety conditions on your car: your tire pressure. That's the Tire Pressure Monitoring System, or TPMS, and for a lot of drivers, it's little more than background noise. Surveys show that roughly a third of drivers have ignored dashboard warnings, and this light is one of the most misunderstood. The common assumption is that it's simply telling you one of the tires is low on air and can be dealt with later. But in practice, that later often turns into days or even weeks, as long as the car still drives normally. That sense of comfort, the car is moving, everything must be fine, is what leads to the real problem. Take Ethan, for example. He noticed his TPMS light on a cold morning and figured it was just the weather. After all, his tires didn't look flat, and the car felt fine. 2 months later, he brought his vehicle in for a scheduled rotation, only to learn one rear tire had worn unevenly enough to need early replacement, and the front tires were showing scalloping at the edges. He also noticed he was filling his tank more often. What looked like a harmless glow on the dashboard had quietly increased his fuel use and wrecked tire alignment in less than a season. The irony is that almost every driver treats the low fuel light as urgent, something you fix within the hour. But when the TPMS warning appears, it's often postponed indefinitely. Experts call this a perception gap. The low fuel light feels like a countdown to being stranded, while the TPMS feels optional. Yet from a safety perspective, that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. The TPMS doesn't just measure convenience. It tracks traction. An underinflated tire flexes more than it should. The contact patch, the area touching the road, changes shape, reducing grip in corners and under braking. Steering becomes slower, and braking distances stretch out, especially in wet conditions. At highway speeds, this stiffness imbalance can make sudden maneuvers unpredictable. Testing data shows that underinflation amplifies the likelihood of tire failure under stress, something few drivers ever link directly to a routine dashboard light. And the numbers are significant. Researchers found measurable increases in crash risk associated with pressure just a few pounds per square inch below the manufacturer's specification. That small light many drivers ignore is actually a safety alert in disguise. Every mile spent driving on underinflated tires chips away at stability and traction, turning what seems like a harmless delay into a long-term hazard. What's more, data shows the difference between safe and unsafe conditions can be as little as 6 psi, a small drop with big consequences. And that's where the real numbers get startling, because studies tracking crash data revealed just how much that drop can escalate your risk. Driving with just 6 psi less than the recommended tire pressure can raise your crash risk far more than most people realize. 6 ps. It doesn't sound like much, barely a few squeezes of a handheld gauge, but that small drop can turn a safe ride into a rolling hazard. Tire pressure sets the foundation for how your car grips the road. When tires are even slightly underinflated, their shape changes, flattening more along the pavement and heating up faster. That means your car has to fight harder to maintain control, especially when cornering or braking suddenly. Tire pressure directly controls how much of the rubber touches the surface below. Too little air, and the edges of the tread wear faster than the center, shrinking the area that actually grips. It's not just about comfort, it's about physics. The less even the contact patch, the less predictable your steering becomes. Engineers call one of the consequences tire wander. That's when the car subtly drifts on straight roads, constantly needing correction. Drivers often think it's wind or alignment, But the real issue often starts with soft tires. At highway speeds, that instability compounds, demanding more focus from the driver at precisely the moments when reaction time matters most. A recent safety study put numbers to these effects by tracking how accident rates change with pressure loss. Researchers found that even a small underinflation window, roughly 6 psi, dramatically increased the probability of crashes related to loss of control. Graphs from the study would show two lines, one nearly flat, representing properly inflated tires, and one sharply rising as pressure drops. In controlled braking tests, cars with underinflated tires needed several extra meters to come to a stop. That distance might sound small in theory, but on a wet road, those meters often separate a close call from a collision. One driver learned this the hard way on an interstate drive last year. He'd noticed his TPMS warning earlier that week, but the tires didn't look flat and he was pressed for time. As hours passed at high speed, friction and flexing raised tire temperature. The rear tire finally overheated and failed, what technicians later called a classic underinflation blowout. There were no prior vibrations or noise, just a sudden pull as the tire shredded apart. Tire engineers warn that air-losing tires don't collapse instantly, they degrade quietly. Underinflation increases heat buildup, accelerates wear, and heightens the chance of sudden failure. In normal driving, that might feel like sluggish handling or slower braking, but during an emergency stop, it can double stopping distance. Add compromised traction, and what began as a mechanical imbalance becomes a full safety failure. Researchers calculated that ignoring TPMS alerts long-term correlates with up to a 30% higher crash likelihood. That means this small dashboard light is not just a minor suggestion, it's a measurable lifesaver. The best part is, avoiding the cost and danger tied to it doesn't require new equipment or complicated maintenance. The fix starts with something you already have inside your car, hidden in a place most drivers never check. Where do you think your car's correct tire pressure is listed? Most drivers would say it's stamped right on the tire sidewall, but that number only tells part of the story. The actual recommended pressure isn't hidden in the rubber. It's on a small sticker most people overlook every single day. Open your driver's side door and you'll find it in the door jamb, typically just below the latch. That label lists the exact PSI your car needs for both front and rear tires, based on the vehicle's weight, handling setup, and suspension. It's a quick reference built by the same engineers who designed the car's balance and braking systems, and following those numbers makes a bigger difference than most realize. Many drivers unknowingly inflate to the pressure written on the tire sidewall, assuming it's the correct figure. That's a common mistake, because that number actually represents the maximum inflation pressure the tire can safely hold, not the recommended operating pressure. Think of it like the red line on a tachometer. It shows the upper limit, not where the engine normally runs. When you inflate to that maximum, you stiffen the tire too much, shrinking the contact patch and reducing traction. At high speeds, it can also cause harsher rides and faster tread wear in the center of the tire. It's the opposite problem of underinflation, but both can shorten tire life and raise fuel use. Here's how to check the numbers correctly. First, find the door jamb label and note the PSI listed for the front and back tires. They can be different, especially on SUVs or trucks. Next, grab a reliable digital tire gauge, the kind that gives precise readings down to 1/10 of a PSI. Unscrew each valve cap and press the gauge straight onto the stem until it beeps or displays a reading. Compare what you see to the recommended number. If any tire reads low, use an air compressor to bring it up to spec. Then recheck every tire after a few minutes to make sure the air settled evenly. A short demonstration during this step can clearly show one tire at correct pressure and another several PSI off. Visually, they may look the same, but the handling difference is real. A driver named Lena learned this after noticing her TPMS light appearing every few weeks during winter. She finally checked the label, corrected her pressures, and saw her fuel economy rise almost 10% in the following month. Even better, her tires, which had been wearing unevenly, lasted several thousand miles longer than predicted. Seasonal temperature swings explain why her light kept turning on. Air pressure drops roughly 1 psi for every 10 degrees of temperature decrease. When cold fronts move in, the air inside the tire contracts, triggering the TPMS, even without a leak. That yellow TPMS light isn't an irritation. It's your car's built-in guardian, quietly protecting you from expensive repairs and hidden safety risks. Every time it flashes, it's warning you before damage begins. So here's the challenge. Before today ends, open your driver's door, find that PSI label, and check your tire pressure. It takes less than 5 minutes and can save hundreds of dollars in fuel and tread wear. Dashboard lights aren't there to annoy you. They're early messengers, translating complex safety systems into simple alerts that keep both you and your wallet steady on the road ahead.